Hey guys, I am Mint ASMR. Today's video is based off of trends I've seen on TikTok in the past, and they are: you can have a good night if you fit whatever statement I say. So you can have a good night if you've bought a Costco-sized pack of tissues in the last 6 months, and if that statement applies to you, then you can have a good night. Okay, so I've written down a bunch on a notepad here, so there's no way I could remember these all or make up as crazy of ones for a full video. So I have a bunch of some kind of specific and some like ultra specific qualifications for you guys to listen to kind of keep it a little fun and silly. So let's see if you're able to have a good night tonight, okay? So let's begin. If your name gets spelled wrong at Starbucks, you can have a good night. If you are a Cancer born in mid to late July, like me, then you can have a good night. If you ate a pint of Ben and Jerry's fish food ice cream, then you can have a good night. I will say if you had it in the last 2 weeks, two weeks, you get to have a good night. If at any point during this week you forgot to mute your microphone on a Zoom meeting, you can have a good night. You deserve it. If you've gone to the movie theater to see a movie this year so far, you can have a good night. You get to have a good night if you have a tattoo of an anatomically correct heart anywhere on your body. If you remember the Bubblicious LeBron's Lightning Lemonade flavored gum, then you get to have a good night. Growing up, that was one of my most favorite flavors of gum. If anyone has ever described you as cringe, you can have a good night. I will allow it. If you have a pet with a human name, so if you're like me with a Athena or Briar, or maybe you have what are human dog names? I think I've met like a Sam. Then you can have a good night. If your Dutch Bros order is a double blended sugar-free Rebel, any flavor, as long as it's sugar-free, then you get to have a good night. If and only if Shrek 2 is your favorite Shrek movie out of all of the current Shrek movies, then you get to have a good night. If you've watched the Harry Potter movies but not read any of the books, then you get to have a good night. Let's see. You can have a good night if before you started watching this video you were already subbed to my channel. That one's a little self-promo, shameless self-promo. Sub to my channel, please. If you've read a book cover to cover in the last 3 months, you get to have a good night. If you wear a ring or rings on either of your pinky fingers, you can have a good night. If your middle name starts with Q, R, L or N, you can have a good night. You can have a good night if you've ever made a TikTok where you stitched someone else's video. Okay. You get to have a good night if you've drank a berry flavored LaCroix today, and I count today as whenever you are watching this video. You get to have a good night if your name is Stella, Jerry, Taylor, or Luca. If you have a niece named Poppy, you get to have a good night. Poppy, Poppy, Poppy. If you have more than 5 cousins, you get to have a good night. If you have the new Razer flip phone, you can have a good night. I always wanted one of the Razer phones when I was younger. They were big when I was in like middle school, high school. Okay. Let's see. If you've ever posted on a snark subreddit, then you can have a good night. Whose snark page did you post on? I want to know. You can let me know in the comment. If you've ever been to a professional baseball game and you got hit with a ball, you can have a good night. If your dog barks when the mailman comes to drop off your mail, you can have a good night. My dogs all day today, barking at the mail, been barking at my neighbors have a gardening service here, and they've been here all day. So my dogs have been mad all day. It's lovely. If your bed has at least a full-sized bed, then you can have a good night. So basically, if you have a twin-sized bed, no good night for you. But if you have a full, a queen, a king, a what's bigger, California king, you get a good night. If your comforter on your bed is either striped, green, gray, or white, you get to have a good night. If you have a Ring camera doorbell, you can have a good night. If you have your own YouTube channel, you may have a good night. If your birthday is September 7th, January 16th, or August 22nd, good night. If you know what Disney bounding is or have done it in any of the parks, you get to have a good night. If your hometown is Segundo, Colorado, have a good night. You can have a good night if you have a Snapchat streak with someone that is 76 days long at the time that you watch this video. And last but certainly not least, if you have one of the Secret Labs gaming chairs with the Star Guardian cover on it, first of all, I am super jealous. You get to have the best of nights. Good night. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you got to have a good night. Let me know what applied to you. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.